Joe Brunson back at you with the back at you, and I am the best reporting on the Eagles. Now, I want to start this video. It's going to make sense. It's not going to be all over the place, but we got to touch on a lot of stuff because there is a really tight race for the last wildcard spot. There's a really tight race going on for the last to win the division, the NFC East division. It's just it's tight all around the board, and teams seem to be showing their true colors around this time. The Eagles are a lot going on. Nick Foles it's already been announced today that Nick Foles is going to start against the Texans, so we can expect kind of the same thing. Probably not as high as an output, but who knows? If you were able to do that to the Rams, you can do that to anybody at this point. But the Rams defense has underachieved, in my opinion, all out throughout the season. So us putting up that 30, like I said, we were capable of doing before the game. It really doesn't surprise me, man. I mean, Nick Foles could play. I want to talk about, first I want to touch on the two sides to Doug Pederson. There seems to be two sides of Doug Pederson's coaching style. And it's hindering our football team in a major way. Now, this is just me. Now, this is what I see. Now, you have the Doug Pederson that likes to coach, that likes to use his brain, the Doug Pederson that likes to, you know, find creative ways for his quarterback to look good, to be in the best position possible. And then you have Doug Pederson, the fan of the player. As a head coach, you cannot be the fan of the player anymore. Now, Doug Pederson, when it comes to Nick Foles, Doug Pederson loves to coach Nick Foles. Doug Pederson loves to put Nick Foles in the best position. Doug Pederson loves to use his brain and see, how can I get my second string quarterback to elevate? How can I bring the best out of my second string quarterback? When good coaches, now Doug Pederson is new to this head coach thing, when good coaches find a way to get their first string guys to excel, they find a way to, how can I make the game easier on Carson Wentz? Should have been the mindset of a Doug Pederson. But instead, Doug Pederson, in most cases, so you got Carson Wentz, you got Nick Foles, you have Zach Ertz, you have Jason Peters. I'm sorry, you have Carson Wentz, you have, I did say Sproles, you have Carson Wentz, Sproles, you have Zach Ertz, you have Jason Peters, you have Malcolm Jenkins, and who else? Jalen Mills before Jalen Mills was injured. He's a fan. He's in awe of these guys. He will put these guys, he will throw them in the fire. He will put them in any position because he's a fan just off the talent alone of those guys. Hence why Zach Ertz has all these receptions this year. Hence why Darren Sproles can basically come back and get #1 running back carries, even though he's being outperformed by a Josh Adams. You know what I mean? Hence why we shy away from running the ball when Carson Wentz is at the helm. You see what I mean? Hence why we would leave Malcolm Jenkins, who isn't the youngest, who isn't a spring chicken, leave him one-on-one against a speedy wide receiver. You know, but Nick Foles, he loves to coach Nick Foles. He loves to protect Nick Foles. You know what I mean? And I feel like you have to do that with everybody if you're going to succeed. Now, I'm noticing with the offense with Nick Foles, he is calling plays that are more friendly to Nick Foles' style, which is not fair to Carson Wentz. This is a side of Doug Pederson that I have seen time in and time out. It seems like it's easier for him to coach Nick Foles than it is Carson Wentz, which absolutely makes no sense to me. You got to coach everybody the same way. If you're saying Carson Wentz is the man, you got to invest in Carson Wentz the same way you're invested in Nick Foles, and that's just the way I feel about that. Now, moving forward, I expect to see the same thing, and the trends that I pointed out before the game, that we were 6-0. When running the ball 25 times or more. We ran the ball, I think, 30-plus times against the Rams last night, and we're 7-0. That trend is still alive. That trend has not been debunked yet. We're 0-7 when we run the ball under 25 times a game. 0-7. So for Doug Pederson to not catch this, and Doug Pederson is going to run the ball, I think, for the rest of the year. I'm trying to tell you, I really believe we're going to run the ball 25 times a game for the rest of the year. He caught that statistic too late. He caught that correction too late. But that's no knock to Doug Pederson. We all live and we all grow. I also caught it a couple weeks ago too. So we all live and we all grow. Now, we got to talk about the Dallas Cowboys because they are in front of the division. They are the guys that we have hopes on chasing. Now, if you cannot score against the Colts, you possibly could lose to the Bucks. You can't sleep on the Bucks. If you're the Dallas Cowboys, you can't sleep on the Bucks. And I don't want to hear any excuses for not putting up no points. I don't want to hear any excuses out of a Dallas Cowboys fan mouth for saying that's a game we didn't need. How didn't you need that game when the race is so tight? How did you not need that game? Everybody needed that game. The Rams needed that game against us last night. We needed that game against the Rams. The Colts needed that game against Dallas. And Dallas needed that game against the Colts. Mathematically, it makes no sense because the Rams, theoretically now, could find themselves in the 3rd seed. Could find themselves in the 3rd seed. You know what I mean? The Bears are gaining ground. The Bears just beat the Rams. They could find themselves in the 3rd seed. So beating us like they feel like they should have done would have been good for them. The Dallas Cowboys, in my opinion, they showed that they can be caught. They showed their true colors. You don't come off a win like that against Philadelphia. We're not going to talk about the help they got from Russ. We done with that. We moved on from that game. But you don't come off a win like that and you don't lose like that and think that we supposed to believe you some type of contender. I mean, yes, the Dallas Cowboys talk about the game shouldn't have been as close as the game was, blah, 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 against us and the Philadelphia Eagles. They had time of possession. They put up all the big yards. They did the same thing against the Colts. The same thing against the Colts. At halftime, they doubled the Colts in time of possession, but the Colts doubled them in the score. That's all that matters. That's all that matters. They doubled them in the score. 3 red zone attempts, I think, sometime in the first half, and no points put up on the board. You can't think. I don't think highly of the team, not because they're Dallas. They just not that good. They're just not that good, in my opinion. So we have to focus on the Minnesota Vikings at this point. We have to focus on Dallas too, which is why we have to talk about Dallas as much. So don't flatter yourself, Dallas Cowboys. I'm only talking about you guys because you guys pertain to our season. You're in a spot that we need to be in. You know what I mean? And I think the Minnesota Vikings can lose out for the rest of the season. I really think the Minnesota Vikings can lose out. Who do they have? They have the Lions and the Bears. They have the Lions and the Bears. With playoff implications on the line, and the Bears possibly fighting for between 3rd and 2nd seed, the Bears going to try to put it on them. I think the Bears try to put it on them. I think that they could lose to the Lions too. They could lose to the Lions too. So if they lose the last 2 games and we win 1 out of the last 2, we got that last wild card and we right back at Dallas again to put them out the playoffs. The scenario is coming to fruition. So it's not really so much about us banking on Dallas losing. We're banking on the Vikings, bro. We are banking on the Vikings dropping 2 of these games. I'm trying to tell you, I think the Vikings are going to lose both of these games. They damn sure not beating the Bears if the Bears are playing for seeding. And the Bears know they could knock the Vikings out. I think the Vikings lose both of these games. I do. I'm not counting on Tampa Bay beating the Dallas Cowboys. I'm zeroed in on the Vikings because I want that spot. You know why? Because that spot says we go back to Dallas and get what we supposed to have gotten the first time. So that's how I feel about that game. So, again, as always, congratulations to Zach Ertz on getting triple-digit receptions on the season. But let's think about this. All the targeting of Zach Ertz, all the favoritism in the passing game. I'm going to call it favoritism because that's what it looks like to me. All the favoritism in the passing game hindered our offense. Alshon Jeffrey is a stud. Alshon Jeffrey is a stud. So many people act like they don't know who Alshon Jeffrey is, and it blows my mind. Somebody is in a comment on my last video and going to say Alshon Jeffrey is a slower, what did he say? Alshon Jeffrey is an older, slower Julio Jones. I'm going to tell you why that don't make sense. Julio Jones is older than Alshon Jeffrey. That's how I know that a lot of these dudes don't even know what they talking about half the time. Julio Jones is 1 year older than Alshon Jeffrey. Julio Jones just gets more praise because Matt Ryan is such a terrible quarterback, in my opinion, that he forces the ball to Julio Jones. Carson Wentz made that mistake of just living and dying with Zach Ertz. Let's look at Zach Ertz's output. Let's look at his top 3 games this season statistically. Did we win all 3 of those games? Probably not. Probably not. We have targeted Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz has had monster games and we still lost. You got to spread the ball around, man. You got to spread the cheeks. You got to spread the ball around. That's all I'm saying, man. We got too many weapons for Tate to just be some throwaway. Spread the ball around. Spread the ball around. Now, Nick Foles going up against the Texans, it's going to be a different type. The pressure is kind of going to be the same, but Nick Foles was taking a lot of hits. standing in there like a man, taking a lot of hits, still completing these passes downfield. We can't have Nick Foles doing that against the Texans. He did it against Aaron Donald and Ndamukong Suh, all those guys, Jadeveon Clowney and the Texans. I don't know how healthy their defensive line is. I don't know who's playing. The keys to victory will be coming for that one tomorrow. But we got to work on getting Nick Foles as clean a pocket as possible. As clean a pocket as possible in that game. Because he took a lot of punishment and a lot of hits for somebody to just be stepping in the fire. He ain't take no contact since week 2. I'm pretty sure he's sitting in the ice bath right now. Moving forward with the just with us thinking that we could win this thing out, it's not far-fetched. You're not alone. I feel the same way. Now, the two sides of Doug Pederson that I talked about, the coach, the idea maker, the brilliant mind, and the fan have to merge together. You have to be a fan and you have to be a coach, Doug, in my opinion. You gotta choose one or the other. You can't be in awe of Carson Wentz's talent to the point to where you let him figure it out on his own, and then you want to coach Nick Foles. That's why we're seeing two different results. That's why we're seeing two different results. Play calling is still a little bit shaky on Mike Grove's part, especially on the short yardage downs. Play calling is really shaky. That needs to tighten up if we're going to win out. Definitely needs to tighten up. Can't sleep on Washington. They just beat the Jags, but the Jags are the Jags. Can't sleep on anybody no more. We need these last 2 games, and we should be in this wild card race, and we should be able to redeem ourselves against the Dallas Cowboys if they don't get any help from the Zebras.